Okay, so the assignment, the final project for IDIA 619 is to make the world a better place in 100 lines of code. We're asked to identify a problem and give people a way to solve it through the JavaScript we write. We can connect different services and functions to do something interesting. Note you can define better place, you can write code and submit it, as well as a short screencast of it being used that you post on YouTube. So this is the screencast. And just to go over a couple things here, the problem that I've defined, I initially planned on defining another problem. Unfortunately, the API that I was relying on was not working. So I kind of went back to the drawing board. The problem I'm defining is that people spend too much time indoors and need to get outside and get active. The world might be a better place if people got outside for hikes more often. So to do that, I relied on the API from the National Park Service, and I have a link here that I'll show you. So the API, the National Park Service has an API that enables you to reach into their database to get information about parks and campgrounds and articles and events and all sorts of great things, which you can see here. I relied on the method to get park-related information, which I'll show you in a minute. And I will quickly give you a demonstration of the site before showing some of the code. So this is the site. It's called Go Take a Hike, and talks about the benefits of hiking, and have used some language here from the National Park Service as well as their data. The idea with this is that you can choose a state and then find places near you. So if I come here and I choose Maryland, for example, and hit Find My Places, it will use the API to get data, and it pulls back 30 places in the case of Maryland. And we have information about the location, a little background information, directions, and weather for each of those locations. If we click on any of them, it will take you to the website for the National Park Service, which of course has more information on each of the locations. I've also included a link here to detailed directions, and that actually takes you to the information on the Park Service site about getting directions, as well as some weather information. So again, you can see we just scroll through these, and 100 lines of code has kept it relatively simple. But again, if I change this, you can see that changing it to another location, for instance, we'll choose New Hampshire and hit Find My Places. It brings back 2 places in the case of New Hampshire, and there are the results. So that's an overview of kind of the app. It's fairly simple, about 100 lines of code, and I'll show you in my IDE here. First I'll show you that we actually topped out at 90 lines. That said, I had to kind of work all of my options here into a couple lines. To walk through things, I start out with some script functions here. I've got a function called getParks, and with getParks I set a variable called spinner, and this is what does that spinner when it loads the parks. What I found when I first did this is that the loading time was a little longer than I would like, and it seemed like it wasn't responsive, so I added a spinner there. And this is just putting it into a variable, which then I use to fill into an inner HTML element, and that way it displays a spinner while it's working. I basically set up here the URL and the reaching out to get the data from the Park Service and get it back as JSON, which is then parsed. And then I have a function, and I just left this called my function. And what this does is it iterates over the array. So I get back the array in JSON, which has all of the parks, iterates over it, and then puts it into kind of an output string, which it eventually outputs onto the page. So that's kind of it. If we go into the main body, I did use Bootstrap here to give me formatting. So Bootstrap just being a framework to help with some of the front-end format. So you can see some of the Bootstrap elements here. I have kind of my title here, Go Take a Hike, my text, and then of course I have the form, which is a very simple form with a drop down for state and a button, and when the button gets clicked, it triggers the getParks event, and then runs that function, and that then populates the hiking locations area here, And that's pretty much it. I do have some jQuery and Bootstrap paths being included down the bottom here, just for the formatting. So again, my app here is called Go Take a Hike, and I do have it just on one of the spare domains that I have, darwinsplayground.com. So when you go there and you refresh it, you initially come to the page, there's nothing loaded. It defaults to Maryland. You can choose any state you'd like though. We will choose Hawaii, find my places, the loading indicator, and here are 9 places. So that is it for this assignment.